Welcome to South Asia Today, a show that provides you the glimpses of South Asia. I'm your host Yeshi. Here are the headlines. India to extend extra $100 million credit to Maldives. Afghani Sikhs flee to India amid crisis in homeland. And devotees in India and Nepal celebrates Nag Panchami festival. Let's begin the show with India, whose bilateral relations with its neighbors are strengthening. India and Maldives are neighbors sharing a maritime border, and both countries have come closer to boost cooperation in capacity building, cybersecurity, housing, disaster management, and infrastructure. The President of Maldives, Ibrahim Mohammed Soli, was on a recent visit to New Delhi. We have a report.
Maldivian President Ibrahim Mohammed Soli received a warm welcome in New Delhi as two South Asian neighbors, India and the Maldives, look to deepen their strategic ties in the face of an aggressive China in the region. Maldives and India are maritime neighbors and share concerns related to the security in the Indian Ocean. Soli met India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and held extensive talks aimed at further strengthening strategic bilateral ties. It included strengthening linkages in the area of trade, investment and development partnership, among others. Maldivian President also met Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi during his 4-day visit to India. Modi pledged a $100 million line of credit to Maldives, including long-term loans and revolving credit of trade. New Delhi also extended financial support for 200 additional social housing units, besides the 4,000 units for the projects in the island nation.
हमने आज ग्रेटर माले में 4,000 सोशल हाउसिंग यूनिट्स उसके निर्माण के प्रोजेक्ट का रिव्यू भी किया। मुझे ये घोषणा करते हुए प्रसन्नता है कि हम इसके अतिरिक्त 2,000 सोशल हाउसिंग यूनिट्स के लिए भी फाइनेंशियल सपोर्ट देंगे। हमने $100 मिलियन की अतिरिक्त लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट देने का निर्णय भी किया है। भारत मालदीव सुरक्षा बल के लिए 24 वाहन और एक नेवल बोट प्रदान करेगा। हम मालदीव के 61 आइलैंड्स में पुलिस सुविधाओं के निर्माण में भी सहयोग करेंगे।
Both sides inked 6 agreements to expand cooperation in several key areas, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi asserting that New Delhi has been and will continue to be the first responder in any need or crisis faced by the South Asian archipelago. The pacts will facilitate cooperation in the capacity building, cybersecurity, housing, disaster management, and infrastructure development in the Maldives. President Soli referred to India as the highest priority of the Maldives.
Maldives-India relationship goes beyond diplomacy. Our values, our histories, and our cultures are intertwined, making it a traditional relationship. Our centuries-old relationship has grown with political trust, economic cooperation and coherent strategic policies between our two countries. We see this visit as an affirmation of the close bond that has grown between us. Our relationship has been nurtured and strengthened by regular contact. I hope that we can strengthen the ties we have with Your Excellency and your country. The COVID-19 pandemic has not been kind on anyone. Like many other nations, we were also forced to fully close our borders for months. The result left both our economy and people in distress.
Observers say several issues, including transnational crime, terrorism and drug trafficking pose serious threats in the Indian Ocean, and India-Maldives ties were vital for peace in the entire region.
Moving on. While the economic crisis in Afghanistan has taken a toll on the lives and livelihood of common citizens, the minorities who were already marginalized are bearing the major brunt. Sikhs, who have been repeatedly attacked by the fundamentalist forces residing inside the country, continue to seek shelter outside the war-torn nation. India, home to majority of Sikhs around the world, continues to facilitate their evacuation, and in line with the same, it welcomed another batch of Sikhs seeking refuge in the country. Have a look.
It's been a year since the Taliban swept to power in Afghanistan, and contrary to what the group promised, the de facto government has failed to provide any sense of security to its people. Social, political and economic aspects of the society have been massively hit. Amidst all this comes the safety of those whose numbers have already declined to a handful. The Sikh minority, which is already subjected to different forms of violence and ostracism, is now desperate to flee the country. Scores of them have already migrated to different countries, with the majority seeking a refuge in India. Recently, a batch of 30 Afghan Sikhs landed in New Delhi. The Afghan Sikhs, including women and children, were seen reuniting with their friends and family outside the New Delhi airport as the refugees sought to seek shelter and settle down on Indian grounds.
उन तालिबान की तो इस तरह दिक्कत नहीं, वहाँ पर अलग अलग इस तरह जो आतंकवादी बोलते हैं वो लोग के, इसीलिए अफगानिस्तान को छोड़ते नहीं है। हालात से आराम, इससे पहले जो हालात थे, जो अशरफ गनी था, उसमें भी इसी तरह हालात थे, आज भी वही हालात है। ये खास इसलिए ये कर रहे हैं गवर्नमेंट को बदनाम के लिए, सिखों को टारगेट करना, गैर मजहब लोगों को टारगेट करना उन लोगों का मिशन है।
The Sikh community, like other religious minorities, has been the continual target of violence in Afghanistan. Sikhs are a religious minority in largely Muslim Afghanistan, comprising around 300 family members before the fall of the country to the Taliban. And since the attacks on Sikh shrine in capital Kabul were carried out by the Islamic State, their fears have compounded several times. People who have managed to flee Afghanistan, which they say has grown extremely unsafe and hostile to them, rued that minorities were being persecuted and their shrines were being destroyed in Afghanistan.
बस बहुत मजबूरी है ना, गुरुद्वारा चले गए आ गया, गुरुद्वारा आ गया अच्छा आ गया, खत्म गुरुद्वारा खत्म हो गया।
Prior to the Taliban takeover last year, Hindus and Sikhs in Afghanistan numbered only approximately 600. Reports indicate that the number has dramatically decreased. Those remaining have been the subject of targeted attacks, predominantly by Sunni radical groups. The crisis-torn country also witnessed a massive earthquake last month, which killed over 1,000 people, left thousands other homeless, and brought the health system under huge strain. This has further impacted the lives of people, especially the minorities in Afghanistan. Observers say India's timely response to the minority crisis emerging out of the war-torn country can save dozens of lives. The government of India has maintained that it is committed to provide all forms of assistance to all minorities coming from war-torn country. India's amended Citizenship Act 2019 allows persecuted minorities from Afghanistan among a list of neighboring countries which can apply for country citizenship. Hence, the Sikhs' decision to relocate to India is not a knee-jerk reaction, but a rational call considering all forms of future securities.
Now we take a look at some happenings in Asia in a segment called Asia Watch.
Volunteers distributed food and drinks to supporters of the Iraqi Shiite cleric Muqtada al-Sadr as they continued their sit-in at the Iraqi parliament. Rushing to provide support to the Sadr supporters, volunteers vowed to remain by protesters' side until their demands are achieved. The Sadrists have called for new elections and an end to the political system that has existed since the US-led invasion which toppled Sunni dictator Saddam Hussein. Sadr came first in October election but withdrew all his lawmakers from parliament after he failed to form a government that excluded his Shiite rivals. Samsung Electronic Corporation Limited has scaled back production at its massive smartphone plant in Vietnam, employees say, as retailers and warehouses grapple with rising inventory amid a global fall in consumer spending. America's largest warehouse market is full, and major US retailers such as Best Buy and Target Corporation warn of slowing sales as shoppers tighten their belts after early COVID-era spending binges. The effect is acutely felt in Vietnam's northern province of Thái Nguyen, one of Samsung's two mobile manufacturing bases in the country, where the world's largest smartphone vendor churns out half of its phone output, according to Vietnam government. Samsung, which shipped around 270 million smartphones in 2021, says the campus has the capacity to make around 100 million devices a year, according to its website. Samsung is Vietnam's biggest foreign investor and exporter with 6 factories across the country from northern industrial hubs Thái Nguyen and Bac Ninh, where the most smartphones and parts are manufactured, to Ho Chi Minh City's plant making fridges and washing machines. The South Korean company has poured $18 billion into Vietnam, powering the country's economic growth. Samsung alone contributes 1/5 of Vietnam's total exports. Idemitsu Kosan is an oil refining and oil chemical company in Japan. With the world's most urgent mission being carbon neutralization by 2050, Japanese firms like Idemitsu is trying to change their industrial constitution for becoming carbon neutral. Idemitsu, through its endeavors, hopes to move forward in the direction of achieving carbon neutrality by 2050. Global warming is a serious problem around the world. This makes summers around the world much hotter than they should be. In Tokyo, different companies are slowly and steadily developing heat protection equipment and are coming up with a variety of ideas. This jacket looks like an ordinary suit jacket from the front. However, there is something which makes it unique. This jacket has 2 fans installed in the back.
表地と裏地の2枚ものになってまして、その間を空気が流れまして、メッシュの方から風が抜け出ているという構造になっています。作業着というイメージが強かったファン付きウェアなんですけども、もっとその一般のユーザー様にも、いろんなアイテムを着用していただきたいと。
Clothes with pattern gives the cool look to the jacket. These prints are developed using a spatial printing technology and contains a cold element called xylitol. Heat stroke is a serious problem of summer season in Japan. Watch type sensor is designed to set an alarm by detecting core body temperature before getting heat stroke. The problems created by global climate change are being solved by introducing carbon neutral strategies, and products like these can help citizens to beat the heat.
Moving on, Nepal is a landlocked country in South Asia. It is mainly situated on the Mount Everest Himalayas, but also includes some parts of the Indo-Gangetic Plain. The country shares borders between China and India. But Beijing has been consistently attempting notorious efforts to expand its influence in the Himalayan nation. Many Chinese nationals, which many believe to be Chinese state agents, have set up their businesses in capital Kathmandu. They are reportedly engaging in unlawful activities in Nepal. We have a report.
Nepal, a landlocked country of some 29 million people, is located between the 2 giant economies, India and China. Due to Nepal's location, Beijing has consistently attempted to expand its influence in the Himalayan nation. In May of 2017, Nepal and China signed a Memorandum of Understanding on the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, under the leadership of the then Prime Minister, Pushpa Kamal Dahal. The bilateral agreement was supposed to bring rapid infrastructural development in the country. 5 years have passed since the signing of the BRI, and not a single project has been finalized. Observers say Beijing intends to exploit Nepal's territory to further its expansionist ambitions.
The Chinese economy and Chinese political influence in world affairs is increasing day by day. Obviously, being a peripheral state of China or an immediate neighboring state of China, its rising influence would be obviously seen in Nepali economics and politics as well.
In early 2019, Nepal proposed 9 different projects to be constructed under the Belt and Road Initiative. These included a feasibility study of the Trans-Himalayan Railway connectivity, an extension of a 400 kilowatt electricity transmission line, setting up of a technical university in Nepal, and the construction of new roads, tunnels, and hydroelectricity dams. The rising concerns over financing and transparency have kept these projects in limbo. A number of Chinese nationals, which many believe to be Chinese state agents, have set up their businesses in the capital, Kathmandu. They are reportedly engaging in unlawful activities. There has been a rapid surge in criminal networks, fraud, illegal trade, and wildlife smuggling by Chinese nationals in Nepal. This not only poses a significant law and order problem to Nepal, but a security threat to neighboring India as well, as both countries share a 1,087-mile-long porous border.
जबसम्म सरकारले यो कानुनमा नीति निर्माण गर्दैन, कानुन कडा रूपमा परिमार्जन गर्दैन, कानुन संशोधन गर्दैन, साइबर कानुनै भनेर कुनै पनि त्यस्ता कानुनहरू तोकेर बाहिर ल्याउँदैन र सुरक्षा निकायका गोप्य संयन्त्रहरू यो सूचना गोप्य रूपमा सङ्कलन गर्न सक्ने क्षमता राख्दैन, तबसम्म यो निराकरण हुँदैन। यसले अझ प्रश्रय पाउँछ। एक दुईजना पक्रेर मात्रै केही हुनेवाला छैन।
China's growing political and economic influence in Nepal has also alarmed the United States. In a bid to counter Beijing's growing influence in the Himalayan nation, the United States and Nepal signed a new development objective agreement in May this year. The United States, through the U.S. Agency for International Development, will provide $659 million USD over a 5-year period to support Nepal's goal of graduating to a middle-income country. Although Nepal enjoys good relations with China on the one hand and democracies like the United States and India on the other, Nepal has maintained an implicit policy of working with both sides. However, Nepal now finds itself walking a tightrope, with an expansionist China on one side and a friendly India and the United States on the other.
It's time now for our cultural section. The Nag Panchami festival was celebrated with great devotion in India and Nepal. Observed in the holy monsoon month of Sawan, it is a day of traditional worship of snakes by Hindu devotees. Take a look. Hindu devotees across India flock to Shiva temples to celebrate the auspicious festival of Nag Panchami with religious fervour. Nag Panchami is a day dedicated to snakes and is celebrated every year on the 5th day of the fortnight leading to the full moon during the holy month of Sawan. There are various religious beliefs, but the most popular one is that on this particular day, Lord Krishna triumphed over Kaliya, the most venomous snake, marking the end of the serpent's reign of terror.
हम लोग अपनी मनोकामनाएं पूरी करने के लिए हम लोग नागवासी दर्शन करने आते हैं नाग पंचमी पे और यहाँ पे बहुत सारी लोगों की मन्नतें पूरी होती है इसलिए हम लोग यहाँ पे दर्शन करने आते हैं और हर साल आते हैं हम लोग दर्शन करने.
On the day of Nag Panchami, devotees offer special prayers and feed milk to snakes. Many among them observe a fast throughout the day, and there is a general belief that feeding milk to snakes rids people of their problems. Moreover, farmers are also advised to avoid ploughing or digging the earth on this auspicious occasion, as it could harm and anger the snakes which reside underneath. Meanwhile, at Sri Mahakaleshwar temple in India's Ujjain city, priest bathed Shivling with ash, performed special prayer and placed the statue of Sheshnag or serpent god in the temple.
भस्म स्नान के पश्चात भगवान को शेष नारायण धारण कराया गया. यही शेष का दर्शन करना आज के दिन सभी भक्तों के लिए बड़ा महत्वपूर्ण है.
In Nepal too, Nag Panchami is celebrated with great devotion. A large number of devotees visited the famous Nag Pokri pond in capital Kathmandu to appease snakes and Lord Shiva with special offerings of milk, fruits, dubo grass, flowers with red vermilion powder. They were stunned to see a live monocled cobra in a basket brought by a snake charmer on the premises of Nag Pokri, coinciding with the festivity of the occasion.
एकदमै आनन्दित मैले सोचेको पनि थिएन कि मैले आएर आज नाग देवतालाई यसरी दुध खुवाएर मेरो हातबाट दुध खुवाउँदाखेरि उहाँले खानुहुन्छ भन्ने मैले सोचेको पनि थिएन यति आनन्द आयो कि कुरै नगर्नुस् न साथसाथ नाग देवता प्रकट भए जस्तै लाग्यो आज चाहिँ मलाई एकदमै आनन्द आयो
Nag Panchami is also regarded as the festival to strengthen the bond between humans and nature. It's time for me to wrap up today's episode. We will be back next week at the same time. This is Yeshi signing off on behalf of the entire production team of South Asia Today. Goodbye and take care.